Okay, this is going to be a real quick summary of the Bible, uh, from Genesis to Revelation. From Genesis 1 to Genesis 12 or 11, you have all the history of the world, from, Cain and Abel and the flood and Tower of Babel and all these different nations that came out of Babel that were 70. That's part of the significance of 70, is for the nations, representative of the nations. Like you look at the Septuagint, 70 men translated, whatever. But anyway, you've got that, and then you've got Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, where the covenant was made. And from there, it's the story of Israel, from when the famine happened, where they went into Egypt, and Joseph went before them, part of God's provision. But they went into Egypt because of a famine. They spent 430, I believe it was 430 years there. And then they come out of Egypt. They go through the Red Sea, and they're baptized. Then they're given the law. The Ten Commandments, and then everything else that goes upon that. But all the sacrifices and stuff go back to Cain and Abel and all this stuff, and Noah, because Noah sacrificed after he came out of the ark. But basically, you've got that, and Torah is the instructions for worship. Here's how you approach me. Here's the separation. The tabernacle has to represent the tabernacle, and the temple represent our separation from God. The Holy of Holies being where His presence is, and then you've got the inner court, and then the outer court, outside the Holy of Holies. 3 degrees of separation. But basically you've got that. So you've got Torah, which is, here's how you worship me, here's how you approach me. And then you've got, from that, you've got the conquering of the land in Joshua. The book of Joshua is all about the conquering of the land. Then you've got judges, or deliverers. How Israel fell into sin, and then God lifted up a leader to lead them out against a people and deliver them from their oppressors, and then they went back into sin, and back and forth. And you see that even among Kings and Chronicles also, where it says they did good in the king reigned for this long, they did good in the sight of the Lord, or bad in the sight of the Lord. They reigned for so long, and they died. They were so old when they became king. Their mother's name was whatever, and you see that going through. So you've got kings talking about, here's what happens when you do good, here's what happens when you obey God, here's what happens when you disobey God. And you can look at the curses in Deuteronomy, the curses and the blessings in the 27 and 28, I believe it is, of Deuteronomy. And you can see through Kings and Chronicles what happens. And then they went into Babylonian captivity in 586, and the temple was destroyed for the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom went to Assyria. And so you've got that, and you've got the prophets. The prophets were at different times. Jeremiah was a prophet during the time of the Exodus, the captivity in Babylon. But basically, you've got the Kings and Chronicles tell you about what happens when you do good in the sight of the Lord or bad in the sight of the Lord. Yahweh, and then you've got the prophets that tell you what's going to happen, because God always seeks to explain to his people what's going to happen. And you got things about Yeshua in Isaiah 53 and Psalm 22, the Messianic Psalm, and you know where and it starts out. That's part of what was cried on the cross. But you've got the Brit Hadashah, or the so-called New Testament, New Covenant, Renewed Covenant. And basically, the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed. The New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. So, all the things in the Tanakh, the Old Testament, were prophesied, and Yeshua was a fulfillment of those prophecies. And that's what the Gospels are about, is coming of Yeshua. And so you have that, and then you also have Revelation that talks about the end times. But you've got Paul and John and all the and Peter, first and second Peter, first, second, and third John, and Jude, and all these people that were apostles writing. And you got the book of Acts of what the apostles did, but the writings are the New Testament that the Brit Hadashah is showing us. Like at the end of John, it says, these things are written. If everything that Yeshua did was written down, the books could not, the Acts could not be contained in the books of all the world. But it is there for to show us Messiah, that Messiah came. That was the point of the Gospels. So you've got that, and so Torah is important because it's a way to live. You look at Revelation, it talks about the testimony of Yeshua, the blood of Yeshua, and the bread of life, the Torah. So that's basically, and basically it's people, separation from God, and then a return to God is basically the Bible. And what happens if you do good, what happens if you do bad. So hopefully this is helpful to some who are new to Scripture and what the story is, because and it needs to become our story, not just his story, but it becomes our story. When we're grafted in, it becomes our story and our heritage, and that's why it's important.